Well, thank you so much for the kind introduction. It is such an honor to be here at this Housing Works conference. I'm thrilled to be here, and I hope you are as well. I'm going to be speaking today about dynamics in the state housing market, but before I do, there are two things that I want to make sure that you know. Number one, I'm speaking only for myself and not for the Dallas Fed or the Federal Reserve System. I will try not to go rogue, and I will make sure everything I say is fact-based, and I will stand behind it. But if I goof up in some way, then that is all on me and not on the Fed. I want to secondly mention that all the data that I'll be presenting to you today is public use, can be found on our website. You're welcome to go to dallasfed.org and take a look at it if you wish. And I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention the great research that the Dallas Fed does in the community development space, whether we're talking about CTC and EITC, MDIs and CDFIs, foreclosure restrictions or eviction moratoria, opportunity youth, many other things in the area of community development. We're looking at it, and we'd love to have you see what we're producing. To see that, just go to our website or just go to Google and type in Dallas Fed Communities, and that will take you to this research that we're doing that you might find of great value. So we'd love to have you follow that. So let me now get into the meat of the presentation, current data-driven trends in the Texas housing market. I'll start with, so here's a roadmap of what I'm going to cover in the next 10 minutes or so. First, I'm going to take a look at home sales and home inventories. Did they get out of whack compared to pre-COVID fundamentals in 2020 and 2021? And if they did, have they come back down to earth in 2022? Next, I'm going to look at median home prices for the state and some of our major metros. Have they risen as much as we think they have over the last decade? And if so, have they moderated? And most importantly, can we see a change in how state home price trends interact with national home price trends? Then I'll conclude by saying just a bit about what everything that I've said might imply about the Texas housing market going forward. So let me jump right into my first chart, and I look at these charts every day. My guess is you probably don't, so do not worry if the chart seems a bit confusing, there's too much on there, the axis is too small. I need reading glasses, some of you may as well, so don't worry if you're not able to see all of that. I'll give you 2 or 3 clear takeaways for each chart, whether you're even looking at the chart or looking off in a corner of the room. Does not matter. I'll try to still keep you engaged. So this chart is showing you home inventories in blue and home sales in black for the state of Texas. Let your eyes drift to the right-hand side of the chart, and you'll see what I was talking about these indicators getting out of whack with normal historical trends. You see the blue line, home inventories, going way, way down compared to where they were pre-COVID. And you see home sales in black again going way, way up compared to where they were pre-COVID. So definitely as you look at 2020 and 2021, there's a sizable change compared to what we're used to. Let me now advance the chart to include 2022 so we can evaluate the second part of my claim that I made a few minutes ago, which was that those indicators came back down to earth last year. So I've done that now, same chart, same data, but adding one more year, and you can see that, indeed, I was right in saying that both of those indicators have come back down to earth. Home inventories now are more or less in line with historical levels, and so are home sales. Home inventories again in blue, and the home sales in black. Well, you might wonder, well, gosh, if home inventories have been climbing and home sales have been declining, I wonder whether that means that home prices in the state would be appreciating less or even falling in 2022. If that's what you were thinking, that's an excellent guess, as you'll see in just a moment. So I'm now moving on to the second part of the presentation, median home prices. For the US, the top line, and Texas, the bottom line. For starters, I'm showing you 2001 to 9, which was a typical housing price boom-bust cycle for the United States and for Texas. What do I mean by typical? What I mean is, for the United States, especially cities like San Francisco, Boston, New York City, massive home price run-up. 2002, 3, 4, 5, the beginning of 6, as the previous speaker discussed. Then 2006, 7, 8, 9, very, very substantial give back of those increases. So basically large home value reductions from that 2005 and 6 peak. What did Texas median home values do? They remained pretty much static over that period. You can see the red line is almost flat, even though the blue line is doing this crazy enormous mountain followed by enormous climb down. And this is very typical that the state of Texas would not participate in national home price boom-bust cycles. So that's the data through 2009. Now let me show you the data through 2021. Sea change, oh bless you, sea change in Texas home prices relative to US. We see a 10-year home price boom nationally. Oh, I should mention all this is real, not nominal. So we see this massive 10-year increase in US home valuations. But we see Texas home prices moving more or less in lockstep. Not quite, but certainly a high correlation with this national boom cycle. We're not used to seeing that in the state. And if, like me, you own your home and you're paying property taxes, you've certainly seen it there. This ballooning check you got to write each year, cursing the taxing authority probably for hitting you with those higher property taxes. But just try to keep in mind, if, like me, you did that, there was a good reason why that happened, which was your home was worth a lot more than it used to be. And that's got to be a good thing, right, if you're a homeowner. So I've now taken you through 2021, and we've confirmed that, yes, indeed, home prices did soar for Texas, as for the US, in this unusual behavior of us following the lead of the US instead of just sort of being flat the whole time. But what about 2022? So now I'm zooming in on the 2010s. So I cut out that Great Recession that I talked about a lot. So that big hump is gone now. And you're just looking at the last 10 years. And indeed, looking at the right-hand side of this chart, 2022, you can see that, yes, for both the state of Texas and the United States, there was a leveling off of home price appreciation, followed by a bit of a decline, a bit of a give back of those decade-long gains. Not nearly enough of a give back to get us back to where home prices had been in 2011, 12, 13, but still home prices declining at all is not something we've been used to for the last decade. So you might naturally ask, is that going to continue? Well, I'm in the great position as an economist to be able to tell you, I don't know. I'm sorry, I know you want to know. I honestly don't know. But what I really would like to call your attention to is the fact that often in investment, people trying to sell you something, they'll tell you this time it's different when really it's not, and they know full well it's not. The way Texas home prices have behaved in the last 10, 12 years, mirroring the US in both this massive upward spike and in 2022, a leveling off and slight decline, this is something that we're not used to seeing in Texas home price data. So I just don't have the numbers to be able to do any stat work and tell you with any degree of certainty whether our home price trends in Texas will continue to closely mirror the United States or whether they won't. Certainly as a homeowner, I'm not really wanting to see a 10, 20, 30% further decline in the US that is matched by a similar decline in Texas. I don't want that, but I simply do not know. No one knows whether that can happen or not. So all I can say is, fingers crossed, but I've given you all the economic information I have for you to be able to make your own judgment with the understanding of just how different this time really has been. So in the last part of the presentation, I want to drill down into some regional data that I think is of great interest. You may agree, you may not. I guess we're about to find out. So I just mentioned that in 2022, for the state of Texas as a whole, median home prices declined somewhat, which is not something we're used to seeing. Well, you might naturally be wondering, or at least would have had I not advanced my slide a little bit ahead of time, you might be wondering, well, does that necessarily mean that all the major metros in the state saw home price declines? Wouldn't have to be. Could be that, 3 of the 4 major metros saw a decline, 1 saw an increase, but just overall, on net, the state declined. Well, no, that turns out not to be the case. That, in fact, all 4 of the major metros that I've got on this slide did see real median home price declines over the last year. But that having been said, the rate of decline in those 4 major metros was not at all the same. So why am I telling you all that? Well, I've got to admit, the main reason that I've got this slide up and I'm telling you all this is because of the identity of the city that is not like the others on this slide, namely the city of Austin. Home price declines much more massive than what we've seen in Dallas-Fort Worth and in San Antonio and in Houston. Well, you might be hearing that and think, well, gosh, is he saying that median home prices now in Austin have fallen below Dallas, Houston, San Antonio? Absolutely not. If you'll let your mind be drawn for a moment to that middle column in this table here, you'll see that no, median home prices in Austin are still well above Dallas and Houston and San Antonio. But I'd also point out that a historic advantage Texas and its major metros have had in growing faster than the US is a favorable cost of living. But nowadays, Dallas-Fort Worth is right around the national average for home valuations, and Austin is well above the national average. Just thought I'd point that out to you. But for my very last slide I'm going to show you that has any data on it, just be thinking for the moment about how Austin home price valuations have declined much more than the other major metros in the state in 2022. Why? Do I have any data I can show you that might explain that? Well, it's always complicated. There are always a million factors that go into home valuations. But one of them is labor market conditions. So I thought for my last data-driven chart, I would show you for our major metro areas payroll employment growth for 2021 and 2022. For each city, the bar on the left is 2021 payroll employment growth. The bar on the right, 2022 payroll employment growth. So first look at the left bar for each city. What you see in those bars on the left is Austin vastly outgrew the other major metros in the state. Now, look at the bars on the right, 2022 payroll employment growth. They're almost the same height. Not quite. Austin's still growing slightly faster. But if you look at which of these metros saw their labor market cool the most in 2022, not cool, but just cool the most, that would be Austin. So that may very well play into why Austin home values declined more than the other major metro areas in the state. Last slide, just tying a nice bow on the information that we've talked about for the last 14 minutes, judging by my 1-minute warning. So we've gone through home inventories and home sales. I've showed you how they got out of whack in the COVID era, but came back down to earth in 2022. I've showed you decade-long increase in home prices for both Texas and the US. Unusual we're walking hand in hand, yet we are. A modest decline in 2022. Will it continue? I don't know. I wish I did. Maybe in 2 years' time, when I'm here as a spectator, I can tell you whether it was true or not. We'll see. But the very last thing I would say, which I don't present data on here, given I'm looking at overall state housing trends, but do want to mention that if you do drill down into where is there availability as far as inventories and where is there not availability, where there isn't affordability, at least not in large numbers, is the lower end, inexpensive, whatever you want to call it, portion of the housing market, which feeds directly, of course, into the issue of affordable housing, which so many others have discussed today. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and I hope you've enjoyed the conference. Thank you.